Welcome to High Gain Guitar Academy. My name is Neil, and today is about the introduction to scales. Now, we've learned our major and minor chords, but what are scales? Chords are just all the notes played together in a group of notes, right? That's a chord. So a scale is going to be notes played one at a time from beginning to end point, okay? We're going to start real simple though, guys. Don't even sweat it. We're not going to start all fast. I don't want to freak you out or overwhelm you. So we're going to start out real simple on one string. Now, major and minor, we've talked about this with chords. Major sounds happy, minor sounds sad. Now, just like chords, with scales, there are obviously a ton of different moods and variety of different sounding ones, but we're just gonna focus on major and minor today, okay? Just gonna focus on the happy and sad. We're gonna learn this other stuff later, but for now, we're just gonna focus on the basics. Again, this is Introduction to Scales. So here we go. Starting out, we're gonna do a one string scale, okay? We're even just gonna use one finger. We're gonna start with an E major scale. So the first note is gonna be open E, you don't have to hold any frets down. Followed by the 2 of the E. Just gonna use my pointer finger to hold these down. Then go to the 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, and then finally the 12. Now notice the 12 and the open E sounded the same. One's just higher, one's lower. That's called an octave. I think we've covered that in another video, but there it is again. An octave is the same note, higher or lower. All the scales we do today are just gonna focus on one octave, from a lower one to a higher one, okay? Now, that being said, it's also a good idea to learn how to do these backwards, okay? So let's start from the 12 and go backwards. We're gonna start at the 12, the big E string. 11, 9, 7, 5, 4, 2, and open. There you go, one string, major scale from the bottom up to the top and all the way back down. So we're gonna do the same thing now, but we're gonna play a minor scale, okay? Now, major is the happy one, minor is the sad one. So the shape is gonna be slightly different to accommodate more of that sad mood. Now we're gonna start out on the same open E string, okay? Now we're gonna go to the 2 of the E. Now it's gonna be the 3 of the E. It's already starting to sound a little bit more sinister. Now we go to the 5, 7, 8, 10, 12. And then we're gonna do the same thing backwards. 12, 10, 8, 7, 5, 3, 2, and finally open. That's an E minor scale on one string using your pointer finger. Pretty easy. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna play you that major, E major scale we just learned, followed by the E minor, so you can hear the difference between the major happy sounding one and the minor sad sounding. Here's the major. And here's the sad. Now you can apply this to any of the strings. We can go to the middle of the strings, go to the G string, and do the same numbered frets that we did for the E. Now it'll just be a G major scale because we're using the G string, right? So you can, again, apply this to any of the strings. Now playing these one string scales, A, takes up way too much room on the neck to play quickly, and 2, it doesn't cover all the notes. Remember, on a guitar, we only have 6 strings, and those strings aren't all of the notes, A through G, right? Remember, the musical alphabet goes A through G, but we only have an A, B, D, E, G. We're missing some notes. There's some holes in that Swiss cheese. So how do we play these scales in other keys that we don't have an open string for? Well, we're gonna answer that question, as well as how to make a more consolidated, easy to get to all the notes version that we don't have to climb the whole neck for, okay? Let's use the 3rd fret of the big E string as an example. Now this 3rd fret of the E happens to be a G note. That's not super important other than that. This is just the example we're going to use. E, F, F sharp, G. We'll go over the notes on the neck in another video, but trust me, the 3rd note on the E string is a G, and that's where we're gonna start. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna play a major scale, and it's gonna use 3 strings, okay? So again, we can start with 1 finger, but I will urge you to try and use more fingers as we get on, get a little better at this. So let's start out, we're gonna play on the 3 of the E, then we're gonna go to the 5. Now we're gonna switch strings, go to the 2 of the A, then 3 of the A, then 5 of the A. Now we're on to our 3rd string, 2 of the D, 4 of the D, and then the 5. That's our final note. Now you may notice that that 5 of the D, our final note, is the same note as that first note we played. That's an octave. So when you do the scale this way, that's how you find your octave. Okay, so again, that's a major scale, that's a 1 octave scale. We could keep going, but we're just doing the basics today, right? Let's try now to do this with more fingers. If you're not ready for this, that's totally fine. You can come back and watch this video as many times as you want. In fact, I encourage you to, because as you grow, you might come back and watch these videos and pick up on things that you didn't the first time around. It's just like when you watch a movie a couple times, like, oh, I never noticed that before. And it's a good way to track your progress too and see how things that used to be hard are now not so hard and you're on to a new group of hard things. So let's try to play the same scale using multiple fingers. I'm gonna play the 3 of the E, followed by my pinky on the 5. Now that leaves my pointer free to go back here to the 2 of the A. And remember, you don't have to keep holding the notes. Once you've moved to a new note, with a scale, you can let go of the old one. You don't have to keep holding it, okay? After the 2 of the A, middle finger going on the 3 of the A, then I'm gonna use my pinky again on the 5. Then we go to 2 of the D with my pointer, ring finger on the 4 of the D, and my pinky at the end on the 5. You notice when you do a scale like this, it spans across 4 frets only, okay? So if I have 4 fingers and we never reach outside of those 4 frets, I could just use a finger for each fret. So no matter, anytime I hit a 3, I'm going to use my middle finger. Anytime I hit a 2, I'm going to use my pointer finger. So no matter what, they always have their own place. Makes it a lot more streamlined, a lot more convenient, a lot faster too. Now let's talk about our picking hand. You always want to be sure that you're picking the correct string that you're fretting, okay? So if I'm picking the A string and I'm accidentally picking the D, that's not going to sound right. So you really want to be sure you're matching these up. It's totally normal to have a lot of looking back and forth at first, okay? Checking both hands, totally normal. Ideally, we want to get to where our picking hand is a little bit more on autopilot and we don't have to look at it as often, okay? You want to get used to the spacing of the strings to where we don't have to look at it a lot. So the scale we just did is more of the traditional style major scale. So now let's do the matching minor scale, the matching sad one, okay? So we're going to start out with our pointer on the 3 of the big E, followed by ring on the 5 of the E, pinky on the 6. Now we go to the next string, do the exact same shape, okay? Pointer on the 3 of the A, ring finger on the 5 of the A, pinky on the 6. So those first 2 strings are the exact same shape. It's a 2-for-1 deal. Now we go to the D string, play the 3 with your pointer, and then the 5 with your ring. So that's the whole minor scale. Major, minor. Happy and sad, just a couple notes different, but it makes a world of difference in how it feels. Don't forget to do these going up and back down, go backwards too, because I remember at some point when I was learning scales, I got really good at going one direction, but coming back down, it was like I was falling downstairs. It was not graceful, so I had to kind of catch up with going back down. So be sure you practice going both ways. Now that we've covered the more traditional versions of the major and minor scales, let's do a scale that's commonly used in almost every style of music. It's really probably the most used scale I can think of. This is called the pentatonic scale. It's super easy. We're going to use all the strings for this one, okay? But don't be scared. It's 2 notes per string, and most of them are the exact same frets. Here's an example. Now, why do they call it pentatonic? What does that mean? Well, pent meaning 5, right? So from your first note of the scale, which being your root note, when I think of a root note, think of where a tree or a plant start from. It starts from the root. So the root note is where you start from. So from your root note to the 5th note in the scale, that's going to be your octave. So remember, the octave is the same note, higher or lower. So there's going to be 5 notes in between those octaves, and that's why they call this a pentatonic scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then after that, it's the octave. Pentatonic scale, here we go. 5 of the E to the 8 of the E, that's pointer, pinky. On the next string, 5 of the A to the 7 of the A, that's pointer, ring. Next string, same thing. Pointer to ring, 5 to 7. Next string, same thing, 5 to 7 on the G. Now we go to the B string, 5 to 8 with that pinky again. And then on the little E, just the 5. And of course, you want to practice it backwards too. So there you go, guys. That's your basic pentatonic scale. It's a real simple shape to use, to memorize, and you're going to find it in a ton of songs as we start learning things. Practice slow at first, build up your speed, and don't forget to use alternate picking once you get comfortable with it. That's down up. So for each string, most of these shapes having 2 notes on each string makes it real easy to go down up for each string. This has been an introduction to scales. Like I said, there's a bazillion more that are all different moods and different levels of complexity. But these are just sort of the basics of getting used to playing scales. Watch this video as many times as you need to. Pause it, to stop it, go work on it a little bit, come back. So there you go, introduction to scales. Hope this was useful. See you soon.